Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And I may or may not post the StreamYard link tonight. We'll see how it works. First, I've got something that I wrote up in regards to equity. And of course, stemming from my research over the last 9-10 years, along with everything else. And most of the people that know me know that I generally refer a lot to the scriptures and, of course, the code. But I don't talk so much about equity because I don't think too many people understand it very well. And I didn't want to sit there and try to explain it to too many people because I still had a little bit of study to do myself. But I think I've got it down pretty good now. And so I'm going to read this reading and how it relates to everybody that you and I both know, how we communicate with each other. And my concept that the idea is actually founded in the scriptures, not just the Abrahamic religions, but scriptures of various different cultural religions. Because everything is pretty much based on identification first and foremost. How we identify, how others identify us. And so one of the aspects is, according to the Christian scriptures, we always hear that somehow we're the dominant creature as an image and a likeness of the very God that created us. So one of the premises that I think about in relations to the Christian scriptures is, did God create man, or did man create God? How do we identify this presence of this God, and that it somehow we're an image and a likeness of this God? And as I posed, I don't think that the Christian aspect of God is actually what we're supposed to be learning, as they call it a noun, God as a noun. And I recently expressed about Exodus 3, verses 13 through 15, and the thing about identity with this, quote, God, and it's just I am, which is a verb phrase. In that verb phrase, it's how we treat each other. Like I said, even in our communications, how we interact. And that's founded, I think, that dominion and that image and likeness in the spirit of this, quote, God, is founded in the concept of morals. The do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. And so I've got this thing that I wrote up to hopefully express it. And of course, using just a couple scriptures to correlate how equity merged with the courts of common law wasn't actually something of modern times, but actually that's what the foundation of law is. And that somehow the separation of that was one of the moral deconstructions of how we're supposed to interact. And so that interaction of equity being merged with common law courts, common law being the foundation of our interactions and our communications in how we agree with each other. Simple agreements, simple arrangements, simple contracts, things like that. And that's what the common law truly is. It's the laws of contracts. So I wrote everything up, and I'm going to read it off. And hopefully everybody will catch on. I think I expressed it pretty succinctly. And I hope you will listen. I hope you will use it to reflect upon yourself and Start performing your own criticisms as to your own morals. And as we'll see in here, find out how that image and likeness is the mirror that we're trying to play in this life, but evidently not too many are very successful at it. So again, hopefully through the scriptures, my expression of reason and logic, I can explain how the courts of equity merging with common law provide you a way to learn how to coin your words, make your word the true bond, instead of being deceived and it being detrimental to you. So the first one is the scriptures as the foundation of equity. And it says scripture is not merely religious doctrine. In my opinion, again, it is the original repository of principled relationships, that image and likeness, the kind which equity seeks to restore and protect. Because we've gone off astray. We've become those lost sheep and need someone to put us on the correct path. At its core, equity is not about rules, but restoring the right relationships between individuals and communities, between one's actions and one's conscience. In Matthew 18, verse 15, it teaches us a process. This is something we've been studying in various different groups. It's the administrative process. Now, the administrative process is a public process which tries to mimic or mirror what we're supposed to be doing with Matthew 18, verses 15 through 20, bringing forth those two witnesses. If your brother wrongs you, go to him privately and show him his fault. If he listens, you have restored your brother. So if you find something wrong with you, you must look at yourself. You must listen to yourself so you can restore yourself. That process is pure equity. Private notice equals a form of due process. The opportunity to respond upon listening is what we get for what's required for a fair hearing. Restoration, not punishment, is the essence of equity. And when I get done here, I'm going to explain this. And that coining one's words and using contract law and the common law to restore certain relationships, things like that. This passage reflects a covenantal framework, the kind seen in both equity and contract law. Neither one of them seeks to punish if something goes wrong. They seek to restore. The idea is that individuals have duties to one another, not just under human law, but by conscience, under God or a higher power. That thing that all of us seems to have intuitively that says we're supposed to do what is right. Simple as that. Correlation 2 is the common law as the law of contract. Like I said, many people don't understand this part, but that's originally where the laws of contracts come from. That very essence of the biblical scripture that says a man is bound by his words. So, the common law arose as a reflection of customary agreements between people, norms and patterns that stabilized society, the things that we did right that were good and helped build a good community, the good morals and ethics of people making those agreements, sticking to them, and making sure that they were effective for the benefit of the community. And when there's detriment, it wasn't a matter of punishment. It was a matter of fixing things so we get back on course and get back to the contracting. But over time, the law of contract came to sit at its heart. Why? Because the contract law codifies what equity presumes. When you see these contracts the statutes and laws that we have as mankind's construct of laws, understand them as contract terms and conditions. That's all they are. And it's just a matter of that's what common law does. They codify what equity presumes. So even if it's a state statute, understand the law being uniform throughout the jurisdictions, those statutes are public contracts. On the private side, the common law side, you have those same equitable presumptions and remedies of being able to coin your words, to find solutions for things that are not just and right for you, things that don't give consideration, things that might be detrimental to you. And these presumptions is because contract law codifies what equity presumes, that people are bound not only by formal oaths, but also by their words, intentions, and conduct. This is where the actions speak louder than words is important to understand. Titus 3:8. Affirm constantly that those who believe should be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men. Here, maintaining good works reflects the performance of a moral obligation as one would expect in contract law. Now, the maintaining good works in equity is the fact of one who seeks equity must first come with clean hands. It's a very important aspect. This is about coming into contracts and being aware of what's put before you, so that no tongue will prosper against you, and that you can rise up in against that any judgments. There is an implicit agreement. In other words, it's implied. This is the presumption. A moral covenant between the believers and their community. That duty of good faith and fair dealings, that we're maintaining good works, and that we're careful in doing so. And when one does what is good and profitable, it mirrors consideration. It mirrors consideration in contract law, the value exchanged and the duty fulfilled. When it comes to the merger, like I explained with equity and common law, these are something that's been in harmony from the beginning. So pay attention, because it's the equity whereupon we constructed the common law to have contract terms and conditions that were fair and reasonably beneficial to all parties. So in English courts, law and equity were separate systems, but in truth, they were always spiritually aligned. The reconciliation began long before any legal merger in the very teachings of the scripture. The Matthew 18, verse 15, you have the equitable process. Going to your brother if you have aught with him, and doing so in private. And if you have agreement with your brother in Titus 3:8, you're careful to maintain good works through contracts that are private. You have the contractual principle. Together they show a wrong can be addressed by private, peaceable process, equity, not a public adversarial process, such as the administrative Article 1 corporate courts, wherein they apply certain contracts and certain presumptions, but leave out others and force you to find them and fight for them. One must still fulfill their part of the community agreement, that good faith and fair dealings, by not being a belligerent, a combatant, but defeating the opponent without fighting. This is a matter of education and teaching, learning and teaching, by doing what is good and profitable through the common law contracts. This harmony reflects a living law, one not limited to the human courts, but written on our hearts, enacted in life, and modeled through divine example. This is what makes it so hard to learn equity. We have very few people that comprehend it well enough to give a divine example. Equity ensures that justice is not blind. It sees intention. This is why I talk about the letter of the law versus the legislated intent of the law as it goes to the spirit of the word. Common law ensures that obligation is not lost. It remembers the promise. That promise of truth, making sure that everything is true and correct. That's why I say it's a matter of correction of the record. Nothing more, nothing less. In summary, Matthew 18, verse 15 reflects equity in action. Peaceful, private resolution rooted in conscience. Equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation. So you must have a conscious thought about your responsibility in this. You must look in that mirror. Titus 3 reinforces contractual duty, living by good faith of one's covenant. Again, being careful to maintain that good work so that when you look in that mirror again, you can see how you look at yourself as compared to how other people look at you and see them as comparatively close rather than so far and off. It's that clouded mirror. You got to start cleaning it off, doing that self-criticism. These two threads, restoration and responsibility, have been merged not just in courts, but in human conduct since ancient days. So again, that mirror, it's your mirror. It's dusty. It's your responsibility to clean it so you can see with clean eyes again. And so equity and contract law are not strangers. They are kin, born of the same truth, guided by the same light. With reason and logic rooted in equity. Again, it's what brought us to be able to contract with each other in a communal way. We learned how to use reason and logic through that image and likeness, the observance, and the visual communication that we are of the same kind, and therefore don't necessarily mean harm to each other, but are of like kind enough that we agree and get along naturally. At first glance, many think reason and logic to be dry tools of philosophy, abstract, neutral, cold. But in deeper view, they are expressions of care and clarity born from equity itself. Again, this is just my opinion. This is what I've learned from my research. And like I said, I've done a lot of research in a lot of forums, and particularly equity being one of them, along with the administrative process and all these contract laws. I see how they're all pretty much uniform. They just use different languages. Equity in its purest form is not just about fairness. It is about understanding the nature of persons, their people. I'm not in edit mode. I'll have to go back and edit that. It is about understanding the nature of people, their intentions, their limitations, and their unseen burdens. These are the detriments that come upon them in these implied contracts and stuff that cost them fines, fees, penalties, taxes, all this stuff that it's not really supposed to be done this way. You're the creditor. Learn that you're not the debtor. Form that foundation. Reason becomes the ability to discern between choices with respect to relationships. Understand who these people are you're dealing with. Is the government really your boss, or are you more their boss? How does that relationship work? What is observable and what is real? Use logic steps and you'll be able to walk right back to the beginning like I did. And I'll tell you folks, when I first started out in this search, this research, because of my last case, and I started doing videos on Facebook and stuff about my case and brought up a lot of different definitions and everything, and was determined to show the people how to go against this government, sue their asses, and beat them in their own courts. That was my original intent. But as I studied further on, I realized that's the wrong way. And that's when I understood that the relationship isn't quite what I thought it was. Understanding that the contracts weren't really valid and that there really wasn't an observable relationship other than my own errors and omissions, of course, being indoctrinated like my own parents and many other people. So, again, folks, time to do your research. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Learn what the choices are with respect to the relationships. Logic becomes the structure by which those relationships are made visible and actionable. And just like the logic becoming the structure, that being careful to maintain good works is good and profitable, it's the same concept. Being careful to maintain your good communications in that relationship is what helps make it visible and actionable. Because without the good communications, you don't communicate, you part your ways and go different places. You no longer maintain that relationship. So a man enters into agreement, whether spoken or silent, written or lived. Equity demands not just adherence, but understanding, comprehension. I have to go back and change that to comprehension. Section 2, implied agreements and the logic of human relationship. Implied agreements. Most of life is lived in the realm of implied agreements, whether they be strictly social, sexually oriented, like most of us lived in the realm of implied agreements. We nod and hold open a door. Men generally do this for women. Okay? We drive on the right side of the road. This is a societal development for both men and women. We promise by presence, not paper. This is the physical observance of bowing down to the court by going in and making that physical appearance without understanding what it really is. Those are implied agreements. These agreements are made and honored not by legal force, but by reasonable expectation, which is equity's domain. And so I'm telling you, we don't have so much equity if by reasonable expectation you live your life in fear under an implied contract that isn't valid without doing the proper research to show that it's not valid, and that the supposed reasonable expectation of your promise by presence or on paper, either one, is not equitable. Logic shows that when expectations are not met, there is a cause, an act, or an omission. There is an effect, the consequence, or the there is an effect, which is the consequences, which is a detriment or non-reception of a reward that one would have expected to get otherwise. And there is a responsibility to learn and correct when those expectations aren't met so that you can get that reward next time and it isn't ending up detrimental. This cause and effect framework is the logic of equity in motion. It doesn't punish merely to punish, but to reveal the misalignment so that correction and restoration can happen. Number 3, consequences of the unknown and learning comprehension. Here lies the brilliance, people. When someone does not understand the terms or implications of an agreement, equity steps in not to condemn, but to instruct. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And we're going to be talking here shortly about the feed a man a fish. You feed him for a day. Teach him to fish. You feed him for a lifetime. Teach. Teaching is the equity. The consequences of ignorance become teaching moments. Again, in that mirror perspective, you have to look in that mirror. You have to be able to look back at the consequences of your own ignorance so that you can fix them. Even if it's somebody else pointing it out to you, don't take aught at it. Take it as a criticism that you should look in the mirror and see if it's true. If it is, and it is causing you consequences, then don't ignore it. Use it as that lesson so you can learn and change yourself. This is the importance of equity and growing in that identity. You are the one that identifies yourself. If you become stagnant in that identity, then others will learn how to identify you, and their identity will stick more than your own. If the ignorance is ignored, then it will continue and one will not learn. As one reflects on those outcomes and shifts behavior accordingly, that shift is evidence of comprehension. Not just knowledge, but integration. This is why we must integrate self-criticism and look at our own ignorance. Only then is one truly prepared to receive consideration in a contract, because they now understand the weight and value of what is being exchanged. Your thoughts for a penny, sir? Equity knows that true change cannot come without comprehension, and true comprehension is measured not in recitation, but in transformed action. Four, profit in knowledge and the ancient parable. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And this parable speaks the same truth as equity and logic. The fish is the temporary relief. It's an external solution. Somebody else can feed you. The teaching is the internal transformation. It's the comprehension of learning how to fish for yourself. The ability to fish is the profit from that knowledge. And it's the capacity to engage in future agreements wisely with knowledge. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a life. And the principle in that is that you teach him so that he then can turn around and teach others. In the realm of contract, this is the moment where one becomes capable of profit in a lawful, equitable way, not merely by accident. Not merely by accident, but by understanding. It is no longer about receiving what is given, but about participating fully, ethically, and intentionally in what is exchanged. It's about giving a fuck. Not just about yourself, but the other person you're dealing with in any kind of agreement, because you don't want to be detrimental to them. You don't want to cause them harm. You're in it for the good of everybody, aren't you? Isn't that the moral and ethical standing that is supposedly the backbone of mankind? So in summary, reason and logic are branches of the tree of equity. They emerge from its concern for human understanding. Implied agreements, when misunderstood, carry consequences, not as punishment, but as mirrors for learning. Even though the system ends up working out as a system of punishment, again, this is the importance of learning from those experiences by not ignoring them. Quit being ignorant of them and understand your part in it. You played a part in it somewhere. You have to learn how to start taking part of the blame. Comprehension proves itself in behavior change when a man adjusts his path in light of what he now sees. And I've said something many times before, and you can quote me on it. I've said you can quote me on it. It's something I firmly believe, is that a man's intellect is limited and biased by his vocabulary. In other words, his comprehension proves itself in behavior change, and he shows he's learning if he changes his vocabulary. Only then can consideration be properly received and profit ethically obtained. Just as the man who learns to fish is fed for life, so too the man who learns the principles of equity and logic is no longer dependent, but empowered. Again, the importance of teaching other people to learn. It empowers them with that knowledge. It's not a restriction anymore. It's not a dependency anymore. When it comes to the relationship and the identity, there is no relationship, no contract, no comprehension without first the language of identity. And the first language is observance. Like our brother Derek says, Derek Gonzalez says, observe, record, report. Observe first. You have to observe first. Here in this context, we're speaking visually, but you can also observe through your other senses: smell, sound, taste, touch. As we did long before we spoke in words. We spoke in eyes and hands, in posture and motion, in grunts and stillness. These were not primitive, they're primal. As a baby, we are a primal being, unknown of the spoken language yet. We are still in our primal essence. They were the original languages of cognition. The acknowledgement that I see you. A glance meant curiosity. A furrowed brow meant concern or warning. A hand raised could mean threat or greeting. Even silence was a sentence, if you know about screaming children. And then all of a sudden everything goes quiet. It speaks a lot. That's something a lot of people may not observe. Observance in this way is the first covenant. We look at mom and dad and we recognize them by sight, not as mom and dad, not as those gods that will protect and provide for us until we understand the concept of God, but as our own dependents. It is a sacred noticing. You exist. I acknowledge you. Image and likeness. Even the baby recognizes this. This is identity's first breath. God formed man of the dust of the ground, and when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, man became a living soul. The conundrum of language, literal versus living. Now enter verbal language, a powerful but double-edged gift. As I've said, the English language is beautiful once you research it and learn how twisted and angular it is and how to use it. You can use it to untwist what has been twisted. With it, we could share ideas across time and space, but with it also came naming and then labeling. This is where the twists coil tight. To name something is to possess a perspective on it. But to label someone is to define them, sometimes without their consent. In many ways, literal language distanced us from our original knowing because it enabled others to speak of us before we spoke for ourselves. Like I said, a lot of us grew up indoctrinated because our mom and dads were the ones teaching us how to babble, first and foremost. And they too were indoctrinated the same way. So they not only taught us how to speak babble, they taught us how to act like Babylonians, all confused and unknowing. Thus begins the great conundrum. If you are identified by another before you recognize yourself, are you truly known or merely claimed? We go on to this identity crisis by expressing it through Toby versus Kunta Kinte in the movie Roots. This is embodied in the powerful and painful story of Kunta Kinte and Roots. Born into his own culture, heritage, and name, Kunta Kinte, he is renamed Toby by a system that refuses to recognize his internal reality. And when we deal with these people in this public record system that refuse to recognize your internal reality, it is the same thing. This is the violent distortion of identity. And I say violent because violence ends up because of it. Where observation is replaced by imposition. Where a name is not a reflection of essence, but a tool of control. See, I spoke before about the name being a reflection of your essence. Your parents name you a certain thing because they want to develop that character in you that comes from that name. The name meant something. It wasn't a tool to control you by putting a tag and a collar on you. Kunta's struggle is not just for freedom, but for the right to define himself. To say, I am not what you call me, but who I know myself to be. And here we return to the principle of equity and identity. Equity recognizes the people. Again, another one I gotta fix. Not the papers. It seeks the truth of the individual beings, not the role they've been forced into. Untwisting the twist. To help people untwist the verbal from the visual, the imposed from the true, we must return them to that primal space of self-observation. What do I see in myself? And recognition of others. What do I truly see when I look at another? Not what I've been told to see. And as well, try to comprehend what others see in you. Listen to them, see how they express themselves about what they think about you when they do. Language as a tool, not a cage. Reclaiming the power to speak one's own name, one's own essence. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with truth, and the Word was truth. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with love, and the Word was love. Think about those concepts, folks. Only then can we choose relationship, not enter it by force or confusion or coercion or threats, intimidation, otherwise. Only then can we enter contract knowingly, because we do so as who we are, not who we've been told to be. In summary, before any contract there is language, and before any language there is observance. Identity begins not in words, but in recognition. First, by the self. You have to be true to yourself so you can see the truth and the lies that they will put before you, no matter who they are. And again, they may not be putting those lies before you on purpose. They may be accepting that lie as a truth. And therefore, you have to come with clean hands and say, hey, man, that ain't going to do neither one of us any good. It's going to be detrimental in this contract. When another names you before you know yourself, they offer reflection, not a truth. Again, to the character of the name and instilling those characters in your children. When you name them something that's supposed to have a mighty and powerful presence, you teach them how to carry themselves with a mighty and powerful presence. When a name imbues something that's diplomatic and has etiquette and knows how to address people, then they come forth with a good, clean language. Then you raise them in that aspect. It's not to control them. Like Kunta Kinte, each of us has the right and the responsibility to reclaim the name, the nature, the essence of I am. That image and likeness, the likeness of being good and moral and doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Letting them know that, hey, that may hurt you. Here, let me help you. It's the coming together. It's part of that societal compact already. Verbal and written language are only true if they reflect the internal reality of the person they name. Only. Otherwise, why pay attention to it? This is what I speak about when people want to do the ad hominem attacks. I don't pay attention to their ad hominem attacks because I know that's not the reality internally. That's what they might think of me, and whether it's true or not, that's up to them. If they want to lie to themselves, then I will let them lie to themselves. And so the question for every listener, every reader is this: are you living as who you are, or as who someone else once said you were? Because only once that question is faced can true relationship begin. And this is the relationship with yourself that I'm talking about. Only then is equity possible. Only then can you clean that mirror to see who you are for who you are and come forth with clean hands. Because only when the mirror is clean can you see if your hands are dirty. The man in the glass. I urge everybody to read this poem. It's called The Man in the Glass. This isn't it here, but read the poem, The Man in the Glass. And ladies, there's a version for the woman in the glass as well. And it says, time to take a look at yourself in the mirror and determine who that is and what his, her intent is. The mirror of equity, seeing what's really there. At the heart of this journey is this. This is my opinion. This is what I've determined through my research and studies. And I hope I'm expressing it well enough that you people can comprehend it as a matter of teaching, so you can then absolutely learn this and teach it to your next generations, your youngers, your children, your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your cousins, your family, your friends, your employers, your employees, your co-workers, whoever. Again, equity in its true nature is instruction. Equity is the mirror that shows us not who we appear to be, but who we are beneath assumption, language, and error. In that mirror, we don't just see others, we see ourselves in full. But the mirror only works if we are willing to stand in front of it without excuse. No excuse for yourself, no excuse for your children, no excuse for your parents, brothers, sisters, family, friends, employers, employees, co-workers, or otherwise. Because equity doesn't punish for errors. It invites us to recognize them so we can correct them. Identity isn't about what someone else calls us. It's about whether we know ourselves and whether our words and actions reflect that knowing. Again, actions speak louder than words. And if a man is bound by his words and his actions don't match, others will know him for what he looks and proves himself to be. It's the same thing. Law isn't about force, it's about agreement. And that agreement can't be valid if it's made by someone who doesn't yet know who they are. Correcting errors is how we shine the mirror. You asked how this mirror is best shined, and the answer is simple but powerful: by correcting your own errors. Privately first, openly if needed. This is the 10th step of that 12-step program. You polish the mirror through which you and others can finally see clearly. That correction begins inside. Misnaming yourself, are you? Reclaim your name. Or, as I've posed many times, create a new name with a new character and work towards fulfilling that. Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, and Tom Sawyer. Living roles others placed on you. Step out from them. Made agreements you didn't understand. Learn what they were and make new ones with clarity. That's why it's important to learn that contract law. Understand it for what it is. This is the turning point, the sacred moment when one stops saying, "They did this to me. Oh, I'm such a victim." And start asking, where did I agree? Knowingly or unknowingly? And how can I realign with truth? Because see, truth is forged in the kiln of error. And here's the paradox. Because without error, there can be no true comprehension. And its error is not shameful. It is the kiln, the heat, where half-formed ideas and inherited identities are fired into clarity. When we try to be something we're not, it is through our mistaken steps that the path becomes visible. So when you begin correcting, you aren't broken, you are becoming. That's why equity value is coming with clean hands. Not perfect hands, but honest ones. Hands that have been dirty, but washed. That have built false things, and now reach to build better ones. The reflective power of the I am. This all returns to identity, the original mirror. When you say I am, you are declaring authorship over your own life. You are no longer a product of another's label or a puppet of old assumptions. You're now a conscious party to your own agreements. And again, I urge people, learn how to coin your words or purse your lips. And that makes you dangerous to falsehood and precious to truth. In summary, the living mirror. Let the people hear it plainly. The mirror is language, how you speak of yourself and others. Like I said earlier, man's intellect is limited and biased by his vocabulary. And you can quote me on that. And again, if people want to fall to the ad hominem character attacks, slinging all those names and everything, it's how he speaks of himself. That's what he expects others to speak of about him or her.
I'm sorry.
The mirror is identity, whether you know who you are or are still wearing someone else's name. The mirror is contract, whether you've entered agreements with awareness or confusion. The mirror is equity, which doesn't blame you for past confusion, but invites you to clean it. Again, it doesn't blame you for past confusion, and it invites you to clean it. But while doing so, that is one of the consequences. Even though there might be other consequences, you have to understand your consequence for your responsibility. The mirror is yours, and you shine it by owning your reflection and correcting what's false in you. This is the work of truth. Not to control others, but to clarify yourself, so your reflection becomes a light for others to see by. So when it comes down to this equity thing again, like I expressed earlier when I first started all this stuff, after my last court case there, I was gung-ho to go after these people. And I had to reflect upon myself. It's one of those natural habits that I'm not often very good at, but when I do see myself for what I am, and I do make my efforts to make things correct. I grew up a Boy Scout. I grew up with a job at the age of 10, first paper out, learning how to contract, making those simple agreements, knowing that they were altruistic. It was good for me. And if it weren't good for me, I wouldn't do it. It's the same concept you've got to understand in everything you're doing in life. Understand how to have that consideration returned to you by making sure and being careful to maintain good works. And if something goes wrong in those good works and causes detriment, and you're the one that caused it, go to your brother in private, make amends. Just like he would if you caused detriment to him. He's not supposed to go around screaming it on the top of his lungs and accusing you and wanting to punish you. He's supposed to be coming to you in private to describe what went wrong, how he suffered, and to help make things right himself. Again, just my opinion, based upon my research from multiple years, well over 20,000 hours of research in all kinds of areas. And I think it's important to understand equity starts with you, just like identity starts with you. It shouldn't be coming from someone else. Granted, it does, because that primal thing, we can't name ourselves until a certain point, but that's part of the problem. People don't understand the nature of the characteristics, and they become indoctrinated in this public education system where we allow other people to continuously name us and classify us as if though that's part of the social compact. If it's part of a social compact, you have to agree to it. I suggest you wake up and learn the distinct differences. I want to thank everybody for stopping in. Bad Barney, No Bullet, Lisa, L. Micah L. Dean Phillips was in, Dominic, Tersini, Jack Off Jack, and let's see here. We had Stinky stopped in. Thanks, Stinky. So I appreciate everybody. Again, I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who would care to share some love. Always appreciated. And you know me. I love you. But I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back, folks. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you just don't respect me. That part's on you. So may God bless you and have a good day. Bye now.